I'm Chad Grevalese with Aerolite TV and your host of the show, Connect Up. If you're looking to gain traction in your career or business, you're at the right place because here we talk about connection. You need to know how to connect with the right people in the right way so you can build valuable relationships that lead you to career success. We have conversations about how to find your voice in your career. I interview communication experts, time and focus masters, and everyday people who have stories to tell of challenges overcome, goals achieved, and how their inner and outer communication and ultimately their relationships accelerated their progress and elevated their journey. Success in life is just a collection of the right conversations with yourself and others. Connect up to a better version of yourself. Connect up to your goals and a brighter future. Disconnect from the things that are holding you back and connect your way to where you want to be. In today's conversation, I get to speak with Michael Dash about how to overcome bad habits and make a real change in your life and how to talk yourself into that change. And we definitely get to discuss today how to connect up to a better version of yourself so that you can better help others, and also how to disconnect from things that are holding you back. It's hard to label Michael with just one title because he's just an overall contributor to this world. He has started and sold businesses, he's traveled around the world and contributed his time and money to several organizations. He's a passionate entrepreneur, business owner, author, speaker, and coach, and he knows that real change comes from the ground up. And it starts with people who really care, and he really cares about people. And he has continually devoted his time to nonprofit organizations to help disadvantaged people. He's a person you definitely want to follow and get to know. And in today's episode, we're going to discuss how to talk ourselves out of an addiction and other bad habits that may be holding us back and keeping us from finding the success and the happiness that we're looking for. And Michael also gives us key steps for making any change or achieving any goal, because making a change, ditching bad habits, achieving a goal, it's all the same formula. And he also shares with us the importance of surrounding ourselves by the right people, how that is absolutely key to any change or achieving any goal and getting somewhere new. So welcome to the show, Michael Dash.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to know a little bit about kind of what are some key aspects of your story thus far that have brought you to where you are today in your career and your life?
Wow, what a broad question. I could go so many directions with. I think, self-realization has been a major component that's kind of driven me to changing my life and changing the way that I lived and the way that I approached things in general. I'm originally from the East Coast, from New Jersey, grew up there, worked in New York City for 10 years before moving out to Salt Lake City, Utah, and starting my business. And, back East, you grow up, at least I did, with this certain mentality. It's kind of this mindset that like work, grind. You have to, be working longer, harder than the person next to you if you want to get ahead in life. And it's tunnel vision. And so for a lot of years, that is all I focused on. Money, right? It was the dollar. It was making more sales calls than the next person. It was, opening up, eventually once I got the company, opening up more offices. It was about hiring more people. And that was just the mindset. And I didn't know any better. I was just exposed to that. So I thought that's what you wanted to do. But, in the big scheme of things, whatever success I did achieve and, where I did end up, I wasn't really truly fulfilled in any manner whatsoever. It ended up in a lot of emotional decision-making on my part, running the business, legal battle with my ex-business partner for 6 years. Yeah, that's right. I said 6 years, which fortunately I've just been able to settle. But I believe if I had the tools that I currently have, that I most likely never would have ended up in that situation.
So tell us a little bit about the tools that you currently have that's helping you make maybe less emotional decisions, and tell us about your shift in mindset and what you're implementing now that's working a lot better for you.
Sure. Well, I grew up having a addiction to gambling at an early age. So I always was looking for that high. I mean, I gambled for 20 years, starting from 7 years old. And, I've been clean 13 now, knock on wood. But when you have that addictive personality, it doesn't just end with your addiction. It kind of transforms into other areas of your life, work being one of them, and really everything that you do. So, I believed like when people would, have a different point of view or approach things from a different manner, I would think like, man, that person has no clue what they're talking about. Like I would not listen to their perspective. I would immediately, come to the solution that they don't know what they're talking about, right? They don't get it. I relate a couple things. Like I used to walk down the street in New York City, and when a stranger would pass by me and look at me, I would be thinking in my head, what the hell is that person? Not like, hey, how are you? Hope you're having a great day. So it's from like this negative kind of attitude that, or kind of chip on your shoulder that I had, which is a very heavy feeling. Like it's not actually, it's not comfortable walking around with that feeling. It's a lot lighter to smile at a stranger and just say, hey, how are you? After being in this, after going through the whole addiction thing, and which is very emotional as well, and going through recovery. You're always in recovery, but recovery starts giving you the tools to understand that there's certain things you can't change, and focus your energy on the things you can, and understanding the difference between what you can affect and what you can't. Right. And just small shifts like that started planting the seeds and allowing me to kind of understand that, there's a different way to live and there's a different way to approach things. So it kind of started through recovery, but it really never got to me and really never impacted me until I was 4 years basically into this lawsuit. And then, I was ready to open my mind up and start exploring other options and other ways to live my life because I was really miserable. And it wasn't until that point that I really started embracing some of these philosophies.
Okay. You mentioned a few things that it got me thinking when you were talking about how, you're walking down the street and you assumed the worst as people would look at you, and you immediately started telling yourself these stories of maybe why they're looking at you. And it sounded like you struggled to maybe like a lot of people almost immediately. Like it's like, oh, what's your problem? Why are you looking at me? And now you're in a place where you do like people and you enjoy connecting with people. Like, what was it for you? Like, what do you think was a key thing that you give credit to that made your switch towards liking people more?
Yeah, so like I always like people. I mean, I'm in the people business. I'm very personable. I'll talk to anybody. But it was more of that like chip on the shoulder attitude. If I didn't know people, right, then that I would just think they were like they had some evil intention, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a jaded way of thinking. But when you're in this, I was in this legal battle. I was trying to run 3 offices. I had like 35, 40 employees basically all coming to me, even though I had some sort of hierarchy, wasn't working. I was just overwhelmed. And I created my own challenges, really. I created a lot of my mess. I created self-inflicted wounds, which so many people do without really knowing that we self-sabotage. It happened to me on a trip I took to Bali, right? It was about 2.5 years ago, and it was with a group called Unconventional Life, and it was kind of like a retreat, like a business type retreat. And there were a lot of people from different aspects of life that I usually don't surround myself with, like an energy person, like a healing person. But then there were two people talking about flow consciousness, the study of flow and living in flow, which is basically the foundation is living and creating an effortless life for yourself, making decisions from your heart versus overthinking every decision and leading with financial means, at least for me, when making decisions. And going through this whole pattern of clearing out all these limiting beliefs, like change is difficult. Like most people think change is hard, but change is really easy. It really is easy. There might be a process, but it really is easy. It's a mentality. Once you decide you're going to change, then you can put the structure in place to create that change. Surround yourself with the people you want to be around to embrace that change. So I decided to take this flow course after I left Bali. It was like a 7-week course. And I started following what they were saying, and I opened my mind up to something new that I normally wouldn't be interested in. I started not worrying so much about things I would worry about before. And it led me on the path to, to selling my company. And it allowed me to say, okay, is this my highest intuition? Is this what I am most excited about doing every day? And the answer is no. And I would say to everybody, if the answer is no for you, then find what it is and make that change.
That's a really great tip, that to ask ourselves that question often. Am I really excited about what I'm doing right now? Is this the right career for me? Am I where I need to be? Because that immediately jolts you into a place where you're thinking, oh, like I'm really not. I mean, that's the question that sparked my career change as well. I was video editing and doing a lot of video stuff for different companies, and I was like, do I really enjoy this? Is this what I want to do the rest of my life? And then I realized it wasn't, and that question alone kind of sparked a pivot and a change in my direction. And it sounds like what you were talking about is you disconnected from a couple of things, including, the gambling addiction, including not listening to people and thinking that you know everything. You disconnected from that state and you connected to a state of learning, a mindset where you're like, there are people out here who have things to teach me that are going to change my life. And once you opened up to that and you took that course and you started learning, you were able to finally make a change. And like you said, change is, it's a process, but it's easy. And it seems like what made it easy for you is that you decided to listen and to open up and to be humble enough to learn from others. And because of that, you absorbed it really fast and you were able to apply it really fast. Would you agree?
Yeah, yes, I would agree. Applying it fast, though, I would semi-agree with. When you've trained yourself to, without even knowing, to act and run your life a certain way for all these years, it's, you have to break the habits. So there is a process of going through breaking the habits and stopping yourself. That happened with my lawsuit. Like, I wanted to settle my lawsuit, 2 years ago. But as much as I said I wanted to settle it, I still hadn't learned what I thought I had learned. And I still made several mistakes that prolonged the lawsuit when I think I could have settled it earlier. And those were painful and financially they cost me. But, what I tell everybody about, the whole lawsuit thing is, yeah, financially it really hurt me. I mean, I spent over $1 million on this lawsuit. It was over 350K, and I spent $1 million on it. Think about it. It's so illogical. But that's my reality. That's what happened. And I tell everybody, it's not so much the money. Yeah, that hurts. I mean, if I had $1 million, in the account somewhere, yeah, that would be very helpful to my life. But it's not the money, because I know how to make money. It's the time. I can't get that time back. It's gone forever. The money, I can make it back. The time is the most valuable thing we all have.
Yeah, no, it really is. And time is that most valuable resource that we have. And when we change our mindset and our perspective of time, everything changes. We all think that money's the solution to us fixing a problem or creating something, and it's really not. It's once we get a grip on time and we know how to use our time, we know how to control our focus, that's when things start to happen. And I'm sure with your clearly with your gambling addiction, I'm sure a lot of time was spent with that, right? And you had to kind of reframe that as, okay, what can I now do with my time to really make it worth it? And how did you get over that? How did you get over that as you were making that change and overcoming those bad habits? How did you get over the fact that you're like, wow, I spent a lot of time doing that? How did you just let go of it and move forward and not stay in that place too long where you're frustrated with yourself that you spent so much time doing that and so forth?
Yeah, it's a great question, because when you spend about 80% of your life every day thinking about gambling, researching gambling, actually gambling, I mean, I spend 80% of my days doing that. And, I was a functioning gambling addict, meaning I was still very good at my job. I kicked ass at my job. But I think one of the things that motivated me to do that is I needed money to gamble. Right? So it kind of went hand in hand. But all of a sudden you have all this time and you're like, well, what am I going to do with all this time? And for me, I started going to Gamblers Anonymous, right? And I walked in one day, not really knowing what it was and not really saying to myself, I want to quit gambling. I didn't do that. I just happened to walk in there one day because my brother was going. He also had an issue. And it had kind of changed some of his behavior. So I was like, let me go in here and let me listen to what they have to say. So I went in there just to hear. And I didn't really, I thought they were a bunch of degenerate losers. And I looked around, but by the end of the meeting, after I heard them all talk, they had more in common with me than my closest friends. So even though there were different ages all over the place, I related to them more than anybody. So then I said, wow, I think I found my home. So, I worked a lot. I worked the program. I did that a lot. But I started running. That's what I did to fill up a lot of my time. So I started running marathons, and I ran 4 marathons in 5 years. And that was a big the big void of time I filled with running, right, initially. Well, 5 years, right? So I had some great marathons. It was great. Running for me was like that outlet where all my frustrations would kind of fall by the wayside, all my challenges. I could just kind of get in a zone. And, working out does that for me, just in general. So I started doing that. I started listening to podcasts I had never heard. And this is maybe 4 years ago, but, started playing around a little bit with meditation. I still don't meditate consistently, but I do believe in meditation. It's a very powerful tool. And the other thing is that I surrounded myself with people that were more inspiring than the people I had been surrounded with. When you're an addict, you surround yourself with addicts. So, I surrounded myself with more positive people.
Well, it seems like you did exactly what it takes to make any kind of change in our life, and you did what it takes to achieve any goal. And I want to just kind of sum up a couple of the key things you hit there that are really important. If we try to pursue a certain goal in our career or life, or try to ditch a bad habit or make a change, it's the same formula. You started running. In other words, you put your focus on something new that was giving you energy and excitement, and so it wasn't enough to just try to not gamble. You had to fill up your time and your focus and energy with something new that kind of moved that energy through you, that allowed you to put your focus on something else and on achieving something. With running those marathons, you set some goals on just some fitness related things that helped you shift your mind in another direction. The second thing is that you started listening to podcasts. So you were getting educated and you started filling your mind with good education and things that were starting to replace all the stuff in there related to gambling, because up to that point, a lot of that inner voice and that stuff going on in your head was related to gambling. You were learning about gambling, you were studying up about gambling, and now you were studying and learning things that were going to lead you towards a change and lead you to where you wanted to be. And so that education got in your head and started to rewire your brain and started to help you to make that change. And then you talk about meditation and other things you did to kind of clear that inner voice, that noise in our head that kind of holds us back. And then of course you went and you found people to support you that were more inspiring, that could lift you to a higher level. Those key aspects, surrounding ourselves by people, getting education, filling our time with something new, those types of things will always help us make a change and achieve a new goal. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that experience, because that's really helpful for anyone that's trying to ditch a habit, make a change, or achieve any goal.
Sure, absolutely. I like to tell anybody who will listen, right? The smallest change can have the biggest impact.
And that's important to remember, because sometimes we disregard those small little changes, and it's those small changes over time that shift everything. And so we have to see the value in that. So that's totally true. Some of the things you mentioned were small little changes, but it totally transformed you. And it's important to do that. Throughout that whole process, how did you have to change the way you talked to yourself to get through that change? Because I'm sure there was various thoughts that came up along the way of like, oh, I can't do this, or oh, maybe I don't want to do this. Like, how did you manage the way you were talking to yourself to take yourself through that change?
Well, with my employees, for instance, I learned to listen and digest what they have to say before immediately firing back an answer. And I was much more strategic with the wording I used to get people to focus on an outcome that I needed. So I massaged it a little more instead of being so direct and to the point with people who may not have that type of personality. So in New York, the way I speak is fine, but when I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, the way I speak can be maybe a little alarming to some people, maybe too direct. Yeah, so I think it's, and you do have to train yourself, and you have to remind yourself, if you want to take a different path and you want to think differently and make decisions differently, when you are in that high emotional state, you just have to say, oh yeah, I promise myself I'm not going to react right now. So if you can give me like 10 minutes, just want to think about what you said, and then let's get back together and finish this conversation in 10 minutes. So I can then go decompress and really react in a much more strategic way to whatever it is I'm dealing with, than just to react emotionally. And I'm not just talking business. I'm talking about personal relationships too, with your significant other, whatever it might be. We all have triggers. And if we can identify what those triggers are, then we're able to manage them a lot better. But if we can't identify what they are, but other people know what they are, they can really, kind of push your buttons and get you to react in a way that benefits them or gets you out of your, the state of calmness that you want to remain in.
That's really helpful. Yeah. To remember that we do all have triggers, and when we're trying to make a change, there's a trigger to the thing we're trying to change. There's a trigger to your gambling. There's a trigger to when we're communicating a certain way. There's a trigger to when we're overreacting emotionally to somebody. And so let's remember that the first step is really to identify our triggers. And then, like you said, you walked away, you spent a few minutes just talking yourself through, okay, how can I manage this emotion? How can I release it? How can I then come back into the conversation with a clear head, without the emotion in it? But it started with you identifying that trigger, and then you're able to kind of talk yourself through not overreacting. So how along the way, let's kind of close by talking about just as you've made this change in your life and in your career, how has your connections to people influenced, your decision making? How has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenced your decision making? And how has your connections to people influenc your progress influenced your ability to change and influenced your overall happiness as you've connected to people along the way?
Well, one of the things I did as an entrepreneur is I joined a lot of different entrepreneur groups. Um, so I joined several organizations that, and this is slowly over time. Once I started changing my mindset and opening up more, I started wanting to surround myself with, different types of people that I wouldn't be exposed to in my everyday life. By surrounding myself with these different entrepreneurs and these different people with different energy and aspirations and changing the world in different ways, you're much more cultivated, and you start seeing things from different angles and exposed to different areas, industries, people that you didn't even know existed, because you surround yourself in this little bubble of people that you're comfortable with. I actually love being around people that I'm not so comfortable around, because I learn something all the time, right? I feel like that's very important to growing. And that's why I love traveling, going to different cultures and different places in the world. And, I did a lot of volunteer work. So I was part of Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So I had a little tribe there. And I ended up climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with them, raising money to defeat leukemia, lymphoma, and other blood-related cancers. And I raised $100,000 for them over a several-year period. If I follow my heart, that everything else will fall into place. Because for so many years I followed the dollar, and that did not lead.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, follow your heart and not the dollar, and you're going to get to where you want to be. And I love when you said how just surround yourself by people you're not so comfortable with, because I was definitely the kind of person who I put a lot of energy into making sure I did not surround myself by people I was uncomfortable with, because I was shy and had a hard time connecting with people. And so that's so true, that when you surround yourself by people you're uncomfortable with, it forces you to grow. It forces you to expand your perspectives, and it forces you to expand your whole thinking, and then ultimately how you contribute to the world because of the people you surround yourself by. And it just sounds like you've had a really wide variety of amazing experiences ever since you made that change, ever since you gave up that addiction. I wanted to ask, what caused you to make the choice to want to give up gambling? What was it that motivated you to think, I don't want to do this anymore?
My brother, and it wasn't him per se. He wasn't pushing it on me, but we both gambled all through, growing up together. And then he went to Gamblers Anonymous, and we were in a car one day driving to Thanksgiving from New Jersey to Massachusetts, and I wanted to put sports radio on, and he wouldn't let me put it on. And I said, well, why can't I need to listen to, know what's going on with the players in the game so I can bet on it? And he's like, no, I stopped betting. I'm not listening to sports talk anymore. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you're not going to listen to sports talk for the rest of your life. That's absurd, blah, 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 blah. And we kind of argued back and forth. And then, I said, fine, we'll listen to music. So we listened to music for the 3 hours. And when we got up there, I was like, wow, that was kind of a soothing ride. That wasn't so bad. So I was thinking to myself, I want to check out what this Gamblers Anonymous is all about. And it was just curiosity. It wasn't like I went into it saying I'm going to quit. I didn't have that mindset. My mindset was more of curiosity. And so I went in and I looked at it. And when I was in there, somebody gave it to me really straight on. They gave me some tough love, and they told me, I was ruining my life. And they were right about everything that they said. And then they just said, just don't gamble tomorrow, and just come back next week. And just have that mentality of not gambling the next day. And I was like, all right, fine. And so I did that. And I haven't gambled since. And that was 13 years ago. So I just kept going back and going back and going back. And my life genuinely started to not feel so heavy. And, it felt a little bit more freeing, but it took a while. They say in the wrong place under the right set of circumstances, any addict can go back. So make sure that the people, places, and things you surround yourself with are put you in a positive place, so you're not, vulnerable.
And that discipline is so important in order to remain in that state, because yeah, the environment that we surround ourselves in is going to have an influence on us, and it can take us back to where we were. I like how you brought up curiosity, because it really does all start with curiosity. And that's interesting, because for some people, they hit like this huge rock bottom and all of a sudden they're like, no, I'm never doing this again. For you, it was curiosity. And I want to just stamp that into our minds, whoever's listening, because when you're curious, it causes you to lean in and listen. And when you listen, that's the first step to changing, because you're finally taking on a new way of thinking. And that's the first step to achieving any goal. And so I want to kind of close up this conversation by just leaving with that point, that if you want to change, at least just be curious. And that's enough to get things going. Michael Dash, thanks so much for being on our show today. How can we learn more from you and connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. I actually am writing a book right now called Chasing the High. It'll be out early next year. If you're interested, you can put your name on a mailing list that will mail email updates out. That's at michaelgdash.com. That's my personal website. Otherwise, I'm very easy to find on Facebook. It's just Michael Dash. On Instagram, M-1. And lastly, I started a series called FATE, F-A-T-E, From Addict to Entrepreneur, where I interview former addicts who are now entrepreneurs, built multi-million-dollar companies, and are giving back to society. If anybody's interested in following that, I have a FATE group on Facebook. All the articles are posted there.
Sounds great. Well, be sure to definitely check that out. Go to his website, check out his series, connect with him on Facebook, because Michael really has a lot to share with us. And I'm glad that you were able to share your story with us today and give us some really great tips for how we can connect up to a better version of yourself, because you certainly did that. You connected up to a better version of yourself. You connected through and away from an addiction and into this entrepreneurial life where you've been able to contribute in a big way and have a lot of amazing experiences. And so thank you so much for being on our show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad to help anybody who might be stuck or in any type of situation like that. Anybody can reach out.
I hope you listened very closely to the golden pieces of wisdom that Michael shared with us today, because he gave us the exact formula for how to make a change, for how to ditch a bad habit, for how to achieve a new goal, and how it includes shifting your focus to new activities like he did with running. And it includes filling your mind with education related to where you want to be, like he did listening to podcasts. You're listening to this podcast, you're already accomplishing part of that formula. You're on your way to getting to where you want to be. It also includes clearing the noise in your head and getting a grip on that inner voice. He identified triggers, and then he talked himself out of overreacting so he could start to manage his emotions. And the last key part of the equation that he shared with us is the importance of surrounding yourself by people that inspire you, surrounding yourself by people that are where you want to be, because they're going to then take you to where you want to be. And to that point, I want to repeat what he said about surrounding yourself by people that make you uncomfortable, but in a good way, because they're ahead of you in certain areas of your life. And that's going to force you to grow, and it's going to force you to expand your skills and expand your perspective and your mindset. And it's going to help you advance in your life to where you want to be when you surround yourself by people that are already there, that can support you and inspire you. Connection is everything. So if you want to connect your way to a better career and life, connect with people that are already there and also wanting to get there with you. If you want to learn more, make sure to go to Facebook and find Aerolite TV and like us there so you can follow the content that I produce and release every week. And I have other videos that I release on YouTube as well, so go subscribe there, that teach communication and relationship building and how to advance in your career. And find us on iTunes and make sure you don't miss future episodes. Also, check out the free class called Communicate Now that I host weekly. Just go to aerolite.tv to learn more. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next time on Connect Up.